Welcome to another episode of Jaeger Tracks. I'm Damon, this is Jaeger, and today we're talking about medical kits and field kits and our philosophy around and how we deal with emergencies when we're hunting in the backcountry. We travel a lot, so we're on the road, we're out and we're tracking. Anybody who owns a hunting dog knows situations just happen, and you want to be prepared to deal with them. And that's true for the humans as well. Emergencies happen, you want to be prepared. So we'll kind of go through what's in my the pack, the bag that goes in my backpack. This is what I referenced in my unbagging of my tracking bag video. And then this is kind of the comprehensive in the truck, at the cabin, being prepared to deal with significant emergencies in the field and then get them to a vet as soon as we can. So we'll do a deep dive. Stick around. All right, so before we dive into what's in kind of each kit, just full disclaimer, I'm not a veterinarian, I'm not a doctor. I've had basic wilderness first aid type training over the years, and nothing I say here is certainly the Bible. This is what we do. It's what's worked for us. It's the situations that we've had to deal with. Obviously, talk to your veterinarian and don't do anything you're not comfortable with your own dog. But as we are in remote places and we travel quite a bit, you need to be prepared to deal with some emergencies, in my opinion, from anything from ingesting something you don't want the dog to ingest that's foreign to actual having physical trauma in the field. So first tool is obviously it's your brain. Second, it's your phone. Before I travel, I'll always ping friends in the area. Maybe they have hunting dogs, or I'll just Google and find a 24/7 emergency vet near where I'm gonna be. So my personal kind of approach to dealing with medical issues with the dog is there's minor discomfort type things that I can deal with, keep him hunting and have a good experience. Then there's actual life-threatening things. And any medical training you go through, airways and bleeding. Those two things, there's a lot of things that might hurt you, broken limbs, separated things, cuts that aren't too deep, burns. Those are very painful, but they ultimately won't kill you. If you can't breathe or you bleed out, you'll die. So my main goal with him is to stabilize. If it's a really traumatic injury, simply stabilize it and get him to a vet as fast as I can to have the professionals deal with it. When it comes to other things, split nails, lacerations that aren't too severe, ingesting maybe something from a plastic chew toy to a bone to a mushroom that I want him to evacuate, and dealing with just random encounters. Probably my worst event so far with Jaeger has been bad encounters with barbed wire. I really hate barbed wire now, and so he's right at the lower level of most strands of a fence. So whenever I am tracking on a property, especially if it's daylight, barbed wire is really hard to see in the dark, but even in daylight, it's hard to see when he's 30, 40 plus feet in front of me on a lead. I always ask the landowners to give me a heads up if we're coming up near a fence, because that it just tangles them up. We lost most of the 2022 tracking season because he had a bad encounter with barbed wire. He got it trapped between his ear and his cheek and shredded his head all up. And that pretty much ended that tracking season. Luckily, the damage to his ear was repairable. And he didn't poke any eyes out, things like that. So the other issues we run into: glass in the ground, cut pads, split nails, just abraded raw areas on his face, on his pads, cuts. These things happen. So what I always will try to do, this is the pack that's in my tracking bag, and it's an Amali, IFAC kit. IFAC stands for individual first aid kit for military. This is kind of an easy to pack little bag, and in this just opens up. I kind of went just with a commercial system that I've just basically modified. So this is the Adventure Medical Kit, me and my dog, and on the back it's got all the details of what's in it. I'm not going to go through everything that's exactly in here, but this is a good kit in my experience for over the counter and to deal with common emergencies in the field for both humans and the dog. So, and we'll kind of break it down. Basically, I just use this one and then I supplement it. So inside here, there's extra vet wrap. This is kind of a self-adhesive gauze. It's really good for staying on dogs' limbs if you got to wrap them up or trying to secure a cut ear, things like that. It works really good. In it, there are then two kind of packages in these little dry bags. And it's got instructions, it's got a basic manual, all kind of tools in here. Again, I'm not going to go through everything in this kit. You can look at I'll put a link below and you can see all the contents on their website for Adventure Medical. But what I do add, those kits, and then it's got some saline solution for rinsing wounds or eyes. But then I add, again, back to I prioritize, I want to stop bleeding and then stabilize and get me or the dog to emergency medical care. These quick clot gauze sponge, also made by Adventure Medical, is really good stuff. With dogs, it can be a challenge to get wounds, pressure on wounds, just because of the hair, and you're not shaving a dog in the field. So if you're trying to get wounds to stop, a quick clot pad under like vet wrap gauze goes a really long way. Same with on a human, if you want to get pressure on it and get it to help clot. Then I add also in here this is kind of a stretchy tourniquet. It's wide. You can kind of wrap and then tuck this in and it'll keep pressure on something. The main concerns with Jaeger in particular would be, let's say he's gored by a defensive buck that we're tracking. In our time together, I've had to defend ourselves from a charging buck once, but it's not uncommon for wounded bucks antler down and charge at the dog, even on lead. So puncture wounds to both humans and dogs from being gored by antlers happen. So that's a pretty serious wound. And then also in here I keep a needle, I'm not sure the gauge, 14 gauge needle. And I received a little bit of training from a military canine handler, specifically on goring wounds and sucking chest wounds. And if you have like a collapsed lung, you can use this needle. It's a technique. You can come in kind of high behind the 7th rib. Again, don't do this without training, but you can insert this needle to relieve pressure and help their lungs actually inflate if they're dealing with a collapsed lung type situation. The other thing I keep on this side is more gauze, but again, this is Vaseline kind of impregnated gauze. So again, it helps seal up some wounds on hairy critters until you can get them shaved. But that's kind of the simple kit, really. It's got band-aids and gauze and syringes and hydrogen peroxide and other things in this kit. But what I then ultimately do, this is emergency in the field. Let's get it dealt with quickly, and then let's get out of the woods. And kind of this all fits in here nicely. It's relatively light, and this has worked well for the situations we've had to deal with, on tailgates, let's say, or even out in the woods before I can get back to the truck. So aside from this one, then in the big kit is I generally in the truck to deal with really bad situations or things that require a little more attention. I'm going to set this down, but everything lives in this kind of Yeti loadout box. I'm going to set it down and lift the lid and shoot so you can see everything in there. But it's quite comprehensive to deal with a lot of things, both human and dog related. So let's jump into that one next. All right, now that we've kind of did a quick tour of what's in the portable kit, it's in my carry bag. Now let's dive into the more comprehensive kit. Again, this is all in a Yeti loadout go box. It just lives in this, and this is what I keep in the truck when I travel. Keep it either in the truck at all times if I'm out on a track or something, or I'll have it back at the cabin nearby to deal with things for both him and for human emergencies. And again, as I said, I'm not a veterinarian. This is things that we've had to use and techniques we've had to do. Only do what you're comfortable with and make sure you get the proper training before you do anything. But, and this is not an instruction or video about how to deal with situations. But I will share some of what we've encountered in the real world and then how this kit has helped us. So on the left, there's, in the tray, there's kind of things that I use a lot, and then there's more comprehensive things. So let's see, start in this bin. First off, bag balm. This stuff is great for dealing with raw pads, abrasions, if they're raw around their eyes or their snout from running through brush. This just helps kind of ease some of that pain, helps the wound heal. Good stuff. Bag balm pet from Vermont. Thumbs up. Then we have a couple different styles of sip powder, quick clot. So, broken nails, cut nails, anything you want to deal with small abrasions or larger cuts with the hemoblock. But again, my priority is always stop bleeding. You can't have a bad bleed go on for very long. So being prepared to stop bad bleeds. And part of that is also vet wrap. So to apply pressure, this is self-adhesive gauze, and it's great for holding wounds in place, whether on their limbs, which is kind of hard for, it wants to slide on a dog, because of the hair, or, we had to use, again, real world story of the next thing I'll show in here, which is 3M's Vet Bond. This is basically super glue, for animal wounds. And if you're familiar with, some of the emergency medical care learned in Vietnam, super glue played a huge role in stopping bleeding in the field. So this is, it's a little vial, but it's like special blue animal super glue. And it's come in handy for us numerous times. I mentioned a bad barbed wire encounter, and ultimately that was dealt with by using Vet Bond, quick clot, and gauze. And I had to learn, there's a technique, ear injuries. In this case, it was a laceration, and he got barbed wire caught between his cheek and his ear, and it was just bad. And I had him in a bathtub, and there was just head flapping, and it looked like the scene from Psycho. There was blood everywhere. Shower curtains, toilets, roofs, walls, you name it. So getting that ear stabilized is all about getting the blood to stop bleeding severely, but also pinning it. You flip it up to the top of their head, and then you use like a vet wrap to hold it in place, and that can stabilize a bad ear wound. And then I got him to a vet the next day. I want to thank the vet in Missouri that saw him. They actually knew Jaeger from his videos, and that was pretty cool. I still have some of the pain meds, which also, again, come in handy. He gets hurt a lot. He's sore just from muscles or whatever. Sometimes, a bad wound, having extra pain meds on hand from a veterinarian will help. Hydrogen peroxide kind of lives in here. Again, good for flushing our wounds, his wounds, but it's also good for inducing vomiting. So again, learn the dose for your dog, but it's totally fine for them to ingest. And I have a kind of a dosing syringe here that I keep in there, and it's so many teaspoons or whatever per pound of dog, and you inject it into their mouth. About a minute later, they'll be throwing up whatever's in their gut. Now this is something you want to do soon after an ingestion. He's ingested the indestructible toys in large plastic chunk pieces, and they've had to be removed from his stomach. He ate a collar cone once. Medical cone. Trying to think other things I've had to induce vomiting for, like mushrooms in the yard, if it's a dangerous mushroom, things like that. So I keep that on this side. The other things, various scissors, blunted scissors, key blunted tip. If you need to trim around delicate places, not having something that's going to poke as the dog's wiggling is helpful. Shears for cutting tape is in here, forceps, and then a thermometer, digital thermometer for being able to take the dog's temperature. Obviously, a big risk is, both ends of the spectrum, hypothermic and then too much heat stroke. But Jaeger's, he does really good in cold. I've had him down some pretty severe cold temperatures and he's happy as a lark. Whereas dogs simply can't deal with overheating and working conditions. You know, we're in Tennessee for the velvet hunt. It's in the 90s. You know, once the heat index is up over the 90s, a dog simply can't cool. It can't pant enough to cool its body down. So again, best thing to deal with that is not to let it happen. Know your dog, be able to read its signs, and just be conscious of the conditions you're hunting or working in. But being able to take the dog's temperature and really know when you're in a severe temperature risk is very important. Moving under this, again, getting bleeding to stop. So lots of big gauze pads. And hey, look, more 3M Vet Bond. This is it's just good stuff. And a whole bunch of different vet wraps. So different sizes, different colors, but again, you can see it in vet. It's just great wound management stuff for animals. Moving on, more wound. This is again the Vaseline impregnated gauze pads, which can help seal around wounds, maybe some hair and different things. Human Benadryl. It's fine to dose your dog. Again, talk to your veterinarian about the right dosage for your dog. But if they're having an allergic reaction to something ingested, something that stings them, a medication, whatever, this can really help quell that quickly in a dog. Various prescription medications are in here from over the years for things, diarrhea, antibiotics. I gotta keep some of that always on hand. Nail trimmer, in case you got a bad nail wound you're trying to deal with. I don't try to, he hates it when I deal with his nails, so it's not fun for anybody, but sometimes you gotta deal with it and cut off stuff that's really painful, but then you can help with getting it healed up once that bad piece is off. NutriCal, this is kind of like, if you're familiar with goo shots for triathletes or for runners, but NutriCal is just vitamins and minerals in kind of a gelatinous form. So if they're in distress, again, you can give them a shot of this in their mouths and some water, and it can help them kind of bounce back quicker by getting some key vitamins and nutrients back into their system. Let's see, a dewormer can also help settle a gut on the road. Probiotic to help settle their guts on the road. Notice I'm saying a lot of things about settling guts. It just happens a lot. You know, he's licking who knows what, usually off carcasses. We're tracking in some nasty conditions. He picks up whatever, and just stress. He gets stressed out when we travel, so end up needing a lot of stuff to help his digestion often. Ear cleaner. Similarly, we're tracking in sometimes nasty conditions. Maybe it's some bacteria, but he's down in the wet grass and wet stuff, and his moisture in ears tends to add up. That can cause problems, so I'll have various types of ear cleaners in here. And then on that note, let's shift to this side. Stethoscope, which can help, you know, listen to their lungs, try to see if they're having breathing problems, if they have traumatic injury or other things. Muzzles, keep some muzzles over here, because sometimes, look, you're trying to help the dog, they don't know what's going on, they're in pain, they're confused, even your best friend might snap at you. Sometimes a muzzle helps be safer, because trust me, you don't want to get bit by those jaws, they hurt. Moving on, hey, more elastic tape, various types of tape and rolls. You know, there's a lot of things you have to secure. Another risk, you know, with him is like getting disemboweled. If he runs over a piece of jagged metal, let's say, or gets gored and there's intestine out, you know, you don't want to clean that and shove it back in. You basically want to clean it, wrap it around the dog, stabilize it, get it to a vet so they can properly clean it before putting it back into its chest cavity. Needles, we'll touch on that more in a minute, but more of the cleaners. Let's see, there's a wound flush. Again, if you happen to flush off something, a cut or other, you know, disembowelment or something, you have to get that tissue clean again, get dirt and debris off of it. This is a safe flush for that. Veterinary spray. This stuff is the ticket for wound care, and just, it's like, I don't know, Neosporin and spray form on crack. It's just really good at helping wounds heal fast, and cuts, and it's sprayed on a couple times a day, and it really helps the wound heal up. Again, mouth, this is more ear cleaner. Ear infections are just easier to deal with on the front end before they get too set in the dog's ear. So a lot of cleaners as precautionary stuff after being in certain conditions, or once he starts flapping his head, scratching his ear, I know it's time to get in there and try to deal with some ear stuff. All right, moving down. I keep a part of an old sock in case I have to wrap up a pad and keep again bag balm on it or whatever. Then I can wrap this with vet wrap and hold it onto his foot till I can get back somewhere to deal with a bad problem, like a cut pad. I got a medical blanket in here to lay out if I have to do some more unpleasant work. There's needles in here, prescription needles. Again, I talked about like sucking chest wounds, if you have to pull air out, or if you're dealing with IVs. So I keep a couple IV bags in here and all the tubing necessary. Again, something you need to know and have a little bit of training on, but sometimes getting fluids either back into a human or back into a dog at a key time is pretty important to keep them stable so you can get them to healthcare. And then stapler. So this is a stapler. There's staples in here, and sometimes stapling up, a wound is one of the quickest ways to close it up and get that bleeding to stop. So that's kind of, the rundown of what's in here. Again, it's get the proper training, get comfortable doing with what you need to do. And it might save your dog's life, it might save your life, but not to be put fear into people, but being prepared again is one of the best ways to stay focused and then be able to deal with problems and emergencies when they happen. Nothing worse than having an emergency and no plan. So anyway, I'll pack this up, but I hope this was helpful. I hope everybody's safe in the field and never has to deal with any of this stuff. Please like, comment, ask your questions. I'm happy to answer them. If it's something you think we also need to add, let me know. If there's techniques or other situations, let's talk about them. Feel free to reach out. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps the channel. We're trying to do more of these kind of educational videos, and we will do our best to be safe out there, and you do the same. We'll see you in the next video.